everyone, and welcome to the Shakedown. You've got Rainforest, you've got Malone, you've got Dave. If you don't know who we are, we've got other episodes that you can watch to find that out.
And watch them.
Yes, please watch them. Please watch them, comment, and let us know what you think.
And subscribe.
Subscribe, yes.
Yes. On YouTube.
Yes, on YouTube and on our multiple podcasts.
TikTok.
On TikTok, on Instagram, on all the places you can find out the latest on what's going on. We have all been to prison in Texas, and today we're talking about the case system, specifically the major case system, and how it works. And I do not have personal experience with getting a major case because, as discussed before the podcast today,
Boy Scout.
I'm a Boy Scout, and I didn't. That precluded me from getting one. But
does not that it just flies in the face of everything I'm fixing to say.
So
it's not being a Boy Scout is not going to keep you from getting a major case.
So Malone
or any kind of case.
Well, yeah, I got cases, but I just got minor ones. But Malone and Dave are definitely going to talk more about cases, major cases, and I will be here asking questions. So go ahead, Malone.
Well, first of all, the first thing I'd like to say is the seriousness of one of these disciplinary cases. I mean, the consequences of getting one could mean going home or staying in prison for years longer. So we're not talking about something that's just a slap on the wrist or some kind of, unit punishment like a commissary restriction or cell restriction or something like that, even though those things are included as well. We're talking about the potential of someone losing years of their life to prison, all because of the word, nothing more than the word of a single guard is all it takes for someone to get one of these major cases. So, or get a disciplinary. You have two different kinds of disciplinaries in Texas prisons. You have what they call major disciplinary and minor disciplinary, and they're graded. There's different reasons for. There's a grading system that's used by the. I do believe it's the warden. The major is the one that grades each one of these cases that go before them.
Major.
Huh?
It's the major. The building major.
The building major is the one that grades them, but the warden's good too, right?
Yeah.
So, you have these. I
was going to say, so just so people know, there's different ranks for the officers inside. The lowest rank is what most inmates call COs, correctional officers. Those are what people would mistakenly refer to as guards. They're not guards; they're correctional officers in Texas. And then you would have
called bosses by most inmates on the inside.
Yeah, bosses. And
I ran into a prison guard at my job. I dropped his food off at his table and there, here, anything else for you, boss? And he's like, is there any reason why you call me boss? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, that's what the inmates call us in the prison. And I was like, really? And I just played so dumb. It was so funny.
Nice. That's awesome. I say it would be fun to do that, but I'm glad I never get to see any of them here. It's
yes, for real.
Speaking, I'll have to talk to you about that later. That's a bit of a personal thing between you and I that we don't need to share with the whole entire world. So remind me before we part ways tonight, and I will talk to you about that. It has to do with Colorado and so forth.
Okay, excellent. There's also lieutenants, major, sergeants. Sergeants are at the bottom.
It goes from CO, and then you have a variety of COs that are actually like kitchen staff and all that. Your kitchen sergeants and lieutenants and that kind of captains and all that kind of rank that goes into that. Your field sergeants, they're all in the in between there. In between. Then you have on the unit you have sergeants, lieutenants, captains, majors, then wardens, and you have like a ward. You have even amongst wardens, there's the head warden, and then there's whatever they call that other
Assistant warden.
assistant warden. There you go. And it depends on how big the unit is. Like on Darrington, they might have more than one assistant warden. There might be two.
And they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, you were talking about the major. The
All right,
major
so
is
the
in charge
major,
of the cases.
right. So somebody's going to be in charge of deciding if this case is is worthy of being a major disciplinary case or a minor disciplinary case. Your minor cases have a limit of what they can of their what kind of punishment they can give you. It can range from taking your commissary for 30 days, taking your rec privileges for 30 days. It could be something as simple as your telephone privileges or your or
Extra duty.
it could be extra duty,
Yeah.
which means you have more work. Or most of those things are kind of rare. You generally only get either rec or
Commissary.
commissary. But every once in a while they'll also tack on there your loss of visitation rights or something like that. They'll take that from you. Those are all things they could do.
Line class.
Well, that's only major disciplinary.
Oh,
I'm talking about minor. Major disciplinary, that's when they can start, really doing a number on you. Major disciplinary means that you're that you absolutely have to, for it to be major disciplinary, that you have to lose your custody status or your line class. Now this is going to get kind of complicated.
But you can get a major case and not lose line class or custody.
Then it would be minor punishment. That's no longer considered to be major disciplinary.
But it could be a major disciplinary with minor punishment. Fighting.
Once they reduce it to minor punishment, it's no longer major disciplinary.
Heard. Understood. Just like somebody goes to jail for a felony, they plead it down to misdemeanor
I understand
time.
it. Okay, you're getting into the whole thing that they
It
can
starts
reduce
out
it
as-
down to
yes.
minor disciplinary. That's reducing it. That's taking a major case and reducing it down to a minor case.
Exactly.
That's basically what they're doing. That's not still once it's I'm saying that if it's actually a major case, major punishment is this.
Right.
Not minor punishment. Not being reduced down to minor punishment.
But
But
Yeah.
you can get minor punishment for a major case, right?
No,
Yes, you can.
you can't. It can be reduced down to a minor case. Is what's being done. Whenever they do that, technically they're reducing your case.
Where's
to a
my
minor
fucking
case.
notebook? I'll look this shit up on TDC's website.
one thing I will say about all of this is about the major. Either way, when something happens and an officer comes through and threatens you with a major case, and they write that down as major, whatever it is, whether it's a fight or it's hanging your clothes during the wrong hours, which is not a major case, but they're going to
Unless
write
you
it
get
up.
enough of them.
Yeah.
Right, if you get enough of those, yeah,
And
and they're going to, yeah. But if
And that's
they're
the other thing. See, look. So the officer's in charge and officer's going to be in charge of what gets written up.
right,
So an officer can take something as minor as hanging your clothes up to dry or something in the wrong way, and come through and ask you to take them down, and you didn't take them down right away, and he can get all his feelings or decides whatever, he's had a bad day, and he could write in, he could embellish upon this whole thing and say that you cussed him out, or say that you had a bad attitude, or say that you just you were sarcastic to him in some kind of way.
yeah,
And
it's
that will
refusing.
influence. Those are things that influence the major or the warden or whoever's going to into how they're going to grade it. And then they might decide to grade something major that was previously should have been a minor case, just based on that.
Right,
Fact.
because they can always tack on to whatever it is, whatever the thing is. They can always say disobeying a direct order or something like that. And
Yeah,
then
they can. Yeah, you can always add on. There's so many different reasons that they can write you a case in TDC that literally you are constantly and at all times in violation of something. And if they so chose to, they can find out what it is, or just embellish into, just make it up at any point in time that you've done something and turn it into a disciplinary.
right,
If
and
there's so
and-
much as a hair out of place on your bunk, or your bunk isn't made the right way, technically they can write you a TDC case on it. if, or they can look under your bunk, and if there's some, and if one of I mean, there's dirt always in prison, right? I mean, if a dust bunny was to roll under your bunk from somewhere else, which is a they have fans going constantly in prison, and there's always that type of thing rolling around on the floors and all that. They can write you up for that. They can say that you're out of compliance, and I've seen them do it.
I have too.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it done too,
There's
and it's a
absolutely no
mess.
way for someone to be 100% within compliance.
No.
And this is one of the things that, of course, not long ago, there was a case that happened on the Ramsey One unit to an inmate named Geesey. I'm not sure what his first name was, but his name this was this Geesey guy um, had a run in with somebody. This is all recorded. No. I'll tell you exactly what it was. Now I remember exactly. The lieutenant that the assembly the warden that was oh man, what was his name? He went from the Ramsey 2 unit. He went from the Stringfellow unit that we were on. He was doing the exact same thing on the Stringfellow unit, but he didn't get caught there. But whenever he went to the Ramsey 1 unit, he started a case quota thing where he told all the officers on the unit, he says, "You have to write so many cases, and I want them to be on being out of compliance." He told them what to write. He even told them what to write the cases for. He says, "You have to write so many cases a day, and if you don't write this many disciplinaries a day, well, then I'm going to write you up for I'm going to put you in for disciplinary action." Which for a guard, it's a little bit. That's kind of a severe thing because that can mean a loss of pay.
It's not like they get paid very well anyway.
They don't get paid much anyways. So if a guard if they get written up and it goes through, then they can lose pay. So of course, what are they going to do if it comes down to them getting paid or an inmate getting a disciplinary case? Well, then we're going to be the one that gets the disciplinary case. So they were going around, writing disciplinaries on absolutely on nothing, or on anything, or if you should be the one that so caught their eye that day, you're going to be the one that got it.
Just FYI, I was on Ramsey unit during this time when that guy was the warden, and the officers, for one, the Geesey or someone
Geesey got a hold of the
email
thumb drive that had, or got a thumb drive somehow, and got a hold of the email that was sent to the building lieutenant, and he had it smuggled off of the unit to a Houston Chronicle reporter, who then reported on this.
Huh.
So
that not only did he do that, he got a copy of it smuggled to the furniture factory where my coworker was like printing off copies of this email and getting it posted on every dorm. So there was a copy of this email posted on the walls of every cell block
That's awesome.
in Ramsey. So you could
I'm
read
not
this
sure what
email.
good that would do, but I mean,
Well, it got, as soon as one got taken down, another one got put up. And there were days where, like, if an officer was under quota, all the inmates would be like, hey, go make your bed, go get in your cell right now, because this guy's writing cases on everything. And they would, and we, and like, they're,
but what
like,
good would that do? They're going to find a reason to write a case. If they got to write a completely a case for absolutely nothing, they're going to write it.
Right. It's just, there's certain, one thing is like, these cases are harder to write. Like, they can't write your bunk is out of compliance, or your it's not clean or whatever if you were in the cell. It's harder
They
for
can
them
write this. They can. They just don't. This doesn't have to be true.
That's true. That it
Do
doesn't
whatever the
have to
fuck
be
they
true.
want to do.
They can write a case for anything at any time. They could write anything. It's their word. Once this goes to court, it's their word versus yours. You can bring 1 million inmates into in there. You can bring the whole dorm in there to say, "Hey, no, this guy was in his bunk," and they're going to say, and they're going to ask the officer, "Was he in his bunk?" The officer goes, "Nope," and it's the officer's word. That's all that matters.
That's true. Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah.
It absolutely is meaningless. Anything else is meaningless other than the word of the officer.
The power of the grievance is a mighty thing.
Even if you had another officer, now then that's whenever it would be, there'd be an interesting debate that went on. But whether or not they accepted the other officer's word over the other officers, I mean, you're still talking about one officer versus another officer. It's still, I mean, it gets you have a little bit more credence, but it's not guaranteed you're going to even win then.
I've seen that too, and that it honestly it really depends on the officer because it can have what can happen is you get this weird situation was which officer has pull with the other officers or with the rank because like some of these units are like they're run by entire families of officers. Like there's one clan of officers that's this family, there's another clan that's this
And
family.
that's one of the things that's one of the places where I was planning on going tonight is talk about some of that. Because I've got some firsthand knowledge of that probably you and Dave don't have of some of the experiences I've had seeing where that these officers all literally all the rank a good deal of I mean all of the people that are in the mail rooms and the people that work in the education department and the industries and all this other stuff, they all live together right there on the same street right next door to each other.
They live on the unit.
No, not all of them live on the unit. Some of them they live on the unit
Yeah.
property, but like on Darrington, I had to go out when I was in the inside. Well, I'll get into that.
The trailer park
No,
at Darrington.
it's not a trailer park.
They have a trailer park
They do, but
with a pool.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Because I clean the pool.
They have a pool that's right next to the unit that the wardens. That's like a pool house that the wardens use.
Not there. Different one. It's like across the highway.
Okay, okay. Well, you're talking about a different place. I'm talking about they actually have houses
I
in a
know.
little neighborhood. It's all on one side of the street. There's not like two different sides of the street. It's just one street. It's a street, and all on one side are just a row of houses, and all of them live there.
It's the red brick housing.
No,
There's a whole street over there too.
No, they're not red brick houses. They it looks like a regular suburban neighborhood with different kinds of houses and all that type of different shaped yards and all that type of stuff. It's just all on one side of the street. The other side of the street is all woods. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's important because you'll understand. I mean, to understand why it is that your word means nothing in this, and why these guards, why families of guards are controlling these units. I mean, and it's just it's incestuous to the point of I mean, what are the words I'm even trying to use? I mean, how does an inmate, when it comes to this disciplinary thing, just what a facade this whole entire ridiculousness is. It's like you say you're living in it's like you're living in your home and you have your own family there and you have the power over
Here's the analogy I would give to someone on the outside to see what it's like in comparison. It's like if you live in a small town and you live in a small town of like 100 people and that's it. And in that town, you just moved to that town and you came in, no one knows you, you haven't really gotten to know anybody, but every person you know is related to this, like to this guy, to whatever. And now you just got charged with something. You just got charged with dealing drugs. Whatever the charge is, you're going to have to go to the courthouse and you find out everyone's related to the judge. And the police officer who wrote you the charge, the attorney who's prosecuting you, everyone is related to the judge, and you are going to have to defend yourself and against all of these different people who all know the judge. And that's what
it's even worse. It's like being black and moving into a town and finding out that everybody in the town's a member of the Klan and that they're all related to each other. They're all one big happy family. And then they all have the power to accuse you or charge you with anything they so desire to charge you with or accuse you of. And then you have to prove yourself against their word that you are right and that they're wrong. That's what it's more like.
That's true. That's probably more accurate because you're already in the wrong as soon as you set foot into this town.
You're already in the wrong. So that's the situation that you're dealing with. So you get this Geesey guy, after he was able to get evidence or the proof of this case quote is going on off the unit and had it made public, and the warden got in trouble for it. And so then they had to go back and they had to take all those cases that were written for a whole entire period of time and had to throw them out. So what happened to Giese? Well, not long after that, all of a sudden, Giese gets shook down. They send an officer over to his cubicle to go through his property, and they find a screwdriver in his property. But what they didn't realize, or what some reason or another, they made a mistake and forgot that the Ramsey 1 unit is one of the few units that has cameras on the dorms and so forth. And right there on the camera, shown clearly just a few minutes before, or just some time before that they had sent these officers, the dorm officer, the officer that was guarding that particular dorm that night, sent him over there to shake down this guy's cubicle. Two field laws are clearly seen. Two officers that are from the fields, which are generally like the uh,
They're the officers on horseback that
they're
are
the
watching.
they're on horseback, but more often than not, in situations like this, they tend to be the hitmen. That they're the inner circle of the wardens and so forth that get stuff done whenever this type of thing happens. They're seen on camera clearly going to Giese's house and planting this screwdriver in his property. So Giese gets locked up, gets a major case for having a weapon, which, by the way, Giese had been in prison for over 20 years at this point. Never had such a charge before at all, ever in his time in prison. Giese was waiting on parole. Giese, just like, I mean, and this was not only this wasn't just going to be a case that was going to hurt his chances for parole. This was going to give him more time. That's something they can charge you with that actually will add time to your sentence. So even if he did make parole, he still wouldn't be able to go home. He'd still have a whole other entire sentence left to do on top of this. And he was going to have to go to SEG, and he was going to go to administrative segregation. This is the worst possible kind of case that you can get in TDC. I mean, close to maybe murder or something like that would be the only thing that you could possibly do that would get you in worse trouble than this, or escape.
Well, here, let's do a little breakdown. So, when there's minor cases, as we talked about, minor cases have minor punishments generally, and like those don't even show up on your parole booklet.
We didn't
or
go
whatever.
through the whole range. I was trying to get to the thing where the range of what you can do with a major case. That's where we're going. That's what we need to tell them now.
Yeah, we need to go through that. And so like a major shape case is going to, like, when you come up for parole, that is one of the few things they will see on your file.
It affects your custody level or your class. Custody and class is where I got cut off last time.
Right.
Custody level is like you have minimum custody, medium custody, maximum. Then you have close custody, you have SEG. There's basically 4 different custody levels. There's some little in between things, but we don't need to get into that. But you have your what that was going to do is going to send Giese all the way down to the worst part. He was going to get SEG, administrative segregation, which means he was going to be housed in a cell all by himself for years at a time, with only being allowed out of his cell for an hour a day.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. I like just to separate major cases from the other charge that you were talking about. The charge, the screwdriver having a weapon, is not just, is it a major case? It is what we call a free roll case, or it is like an actual charge, just like murder is a charge.
Criminal charge. You'll have an actual criminal charge.
So you're getting an additional criminal charge on top of all the other ones you have, which you normally like. So you're getting sentenced to another crime that's in your books.
And don't forget to mention that the people investigating this new free world case are all employees of the state of Texas.
Right. People that would be investigating these cases are the exact same people that were just done talking about planting things in there.
They all work for the state of Texas. They work for the prison system.
Right.
Their job is to make sure that you are wrong.
Exactly.
Right. And so
Giese, if it had not been for that camera, if he had been across the street on the Stringfellow unit, the unit that I was on, there are no cameras on that unit. And had the same exact thing happened over there, Giese would have had he would have had no recourse whatsoever. He would have simply been subject to every single thing that they wanted to do to him without any ability whatsoever to fight back. He'd right now probably still be sitting. He has made parole since there. Then he'd most certainly still be sitting in prison right now to this day. And if I wouldn't doubt that he'd still be sitting in seg right now to this day. I mean, you generally have to do several years in seg before they let you out.
Well,
With a case
yeah.
like that,
Yeah, they would have. I mean, half of Ramsey 1 is seg, which they could have immediately just sent him to seg, and then you would have never seen him again. And
right.
yeah,
he'd been just that'd have been it, been the end of him, type of thing, until a decade or so later, whenever the war, they've forgotten about this whole entire mishap, and then he might be maybe he can start making his way back up the ladder into regular custody, and eventually would hope to make a parole. Point being is that he would have lost years, 5-6 years of his life for certain, if not more. That he I'm so flustered whenever I think about this. I can't even put the words together. I think everybody understands what I'm trying to say. That
right. And I met. So one thing is, like, I was on the same dorm as Giese when I was in Stringfellow, and when I first moved to Stringfellow, because they moved. So here's the fallout of what happened at Ramsey 1. Ramsey 1, I heard about what happened to Giese. Then I got moved to Stringfellow right after Giese got moved. And turned out they moved us both in the same door, just a couple cells over from each other. And I met him. And I was like, holy crap, this guy's, you're a legend. And I also got to hear about what happened. The warden just got moved from Ramsey to another unit. That's all that happened. And then the assistant warden, who also got in trouble, he just became major of a medical unit, like in Corpus Christi, I think. Like, there's a medical unit down south. That's where he became, or Estelle. I think that was the that medical unit.
Yeah, they move him around, and they might bust him down one rank, but they take care of him. That thing that they wear on their hat that says "We take care of our own." Yeah, that applies to them.
Right, and except for the only people who got fired were the 2 field officers who did the search, and that's it.
Yeah,
and because they were on camera. But the people who were actually in charge, the ones who gave him the orders, which were the assistant warden and the warden, those 2 were the only ones who got, like, they just got moved around. Is about it.
right.
So yeah.
Thus, the story of Giese, that is a perfect illustration of the type of exactly what you're dealing with this case system. He's one of the few examples where you're able to there's a proof from inside of what goes on in here, of the type of thing that we're talking about in Texas prisons that keep people in prison longer than they're supposed to be. I mean, all this, the nonsense of how long people stay in prison due to not being able to make parole. A good deal of it is from these disciplinary cases, which are just there's no way out of. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do to stop them, so to speak. And yet, here it is. It's enough to keep someone in prison for long. I mean, just imagine any other circumstance where this would be the case. If they were taking people off of the streets and putting them in prison under the same kind of under the same guise, under the same sort of system, I mean, everybody in the world would be screaming about it, but no one cares because these are a bunch of prisoners.
Right. So what I can do is, like, we're about at wrap time, so this is a good time to wrap it up. But, like, if anyone wants more info, they can always look up the original article. It's written by Carrie Blankinger when she was at the Houston Chronicle, and I will try and have a link in this episode on the comments on YouTube, or even in the podcast notes with this article too, so you can look up what happened with Giese and you can see the full thing. And they might even have a link still with the video too, showing it. And then we might talk some more in the next episode about major cases and things like that. But anyway, thanks so much, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Shakedown.
The Shakedown was produced at Longmont Public Media. And our theme song, Shakedown, was brought to you by Envato Elements. If you want any Shakedown merchandise, or you want to support the show, you can go to waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com.